Dr. B here. Please give it a listen, a watch. Fantastic Deals and Dreams pilot series. I interviewed a lot of folks in the real estate and or business world. I hope you enjoy this episode. Enjoy. Hi, Roddy. Welcome to another edition of my show. I'm Dr. B here. I'm here with the great Ray Lozano. Ray, how are you, man?
Super good, man. I appreciate being on your show today. Thank you.
It's fantastic. 70 episodes in, Dr. B show, and it's morphing into something that is giving back to the community every day, more and
Oh,
more.
I love that. Yeah, yeah. It's crazy how it morphs and changes. You look back at those first couple of ones, you're like, oh, what was I doing? And now you're like putting it together, right?
Yeah, exactly. A lot of dead language, ams, and this and that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's so true. Yeah,
A lot
yeah.
better communication. So tell everyone about yourself.
You know what? I have been a drug and alcohol speaker for junior high and high school kids, gosh, since way back in the day. Started in 1990. I go out and I do presentations and speaking to students and have done that for the longest time and have worked in the addiction field. So now my new focus is working with businesses with the psychology of addiction. So why do people get addicted? Why do they keep coming back? And what I've done is I've moved it from addiction and have moved it into how do you hold on to your clients? Why does a person that does drugs keep going back to that even though they know it's detrimental? So I've taken all of that psychology and turned it into something because we all have an addiction, right? Mine is talking in front of kids. Yours might be, watching wrestling and stuff like that. But it's not an addiction that's going to cause you to wreck your car. It actually is something that goes in your head and says, "Oh man, I love doing this." So how can you build that into your clients is what I'm focusing on right now.
I love that. What are some examples of that? So I love that how you pivoted, or not pivoted, but you've used that now on I guess, the B2B side.
Yeah, you know what it is? It's speaking their language, and that's the big deal. And so if somebody came up to you and started talking about wrestling, you instantly make that connection, right? And you actually have that feeling of man camaraderie with that person, and that's what you're looking for. So when I'm working with a group of clients, and one of the main things you need to do is you need to be able to speak your client's language, and we don't. And so let me give you this as an example. Let me put you in this situation. Okay. So put this inside your brain. You are in a crazy, crazy busy Japanese train station. You're running late. You got about 10 minutes to catch your train. You don't know how to get there. You look at your phone is dead, and you're starting to have these emotions. So nothing seems familiar to you, nothing smells familiar, you don't hear any voices, nobody looks like you, and you're standing in this train station and everybody's running by you and you're running late for your train. How do you feel right there?
I feel lost, overwhelmed, lost. Anxiety may kick in. All those emotions may flare up.
Exactly. You feel panicked, right? You feel all
Yeah.
this stuff in it. Okay. So you're standing there and all of a sudden you're like, don't know what to do. And then this thing happens inside you and you start screaming at the top of your voice. Does anybody speak English? Does anybody speak English? Does anybody speak English? You see somebody turn around, they walk towards you and they look at you and they go, uh, I speak English. How can I help you? How do you feel now?
A lot better because at least now I can communicate with someone, right?
Right. See, and look how quickly that took, right?
Yeah.
Now, the person that said they speak English, have they done anything for you?
No, not
No,
at all. Not at all.
not at all. All they did is said, I speak your language, right? And you immediately had trust. You immediately made that connection. And if you told them, man, I got to get to this train, I got to catch it to get home, can you get me there? And they look at you and go, oh, yeah, I know exactly where that's at. Are you going to follow them? Yeah. If they tell you, put your hand on my shoulder, and because it's so crowded here, I don't want you to lose me. Are you going to put your hand on their shoulder? Yeah. Do you know this person? No. When they walk you to the train station, are you going to tell them thank you? Yeah. And how often are you going to tell that story? Every single time, right? You get home, somebody tells you what happened to you, man, when you were over in Japan, what crazy thing happened to you? You're gonna tell that story. There's a formula to that. There's a formula to learn how to speak your client's language. So you instantly build trust. They instantly want to follow you. They instantly will go where you want them to go. And this is the thing, they'll tell that story. And so one of the other examples that I bring out is like, let's say you and a friend were going to go eat Mexican food, right? Your friend does all this research and you find this, El Chalupo Mexican restaurant you're going to go to, right? And you tell your other friend, hey, we're going to El Chalupo Mexican restaurant because it has great reviews. And your friend says, oh, you know what? That's a really good place. I've eaten there, but you know what? El Sombrero is way better. which one of those are you going to go to? More than likely, you're going to go to El Sombrero, right? There's a formula to that. And it falls in the category of understanding the psychology of addiction. Why does a person that's using drugs continually go back to the same person over and over and over again? Because they trust them, because they have this camaraderie, because they have this bond. And I've taken all of the stuff that I learned from addiction and I applied it to businesses. And so that's been our success right now. I spoke with a whole bunch of real estate agents and they were like, wow, man, that's really interesting. And the people that have applied this have seen success in their business, getting their clients addicted to them as a business.
I
Isn't
like
that
that.
crazy?
It's crazy, yeah. How you
Yeah,
can
it
turn
is.
something negative to something positive, right? I love
Yeah.
that. We'll get into that in a minute, but tell us about education. Did you go to school? Did you go to college? In order to tell us about that.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I did all that as well. And but the starting point for this for me was coming from a family that had drug and alcohol problems.
Understood. Okay, got it.
Yeah, and I just had this one question as a 9-year-old kid sitting on our curb as the police were going through our house. It's like, why do people do drugs? My dad's a great guy. He drinks and then he fights. My mom's a nice lady. She drinks and then she yells at us. And I had to have the answer for that. So my whole life has been built around understanding drugs and addiction and how people get out of it. And have done a bunch of education and gone to a lot of different classes. But I'll tell you where the real work has happened is just working in the field, talking to people that have addictions and understanding why they got there.
Got it. So how long have you been talking about drug prevention, drug addiction, and then speaking to the
Uh,
youth?
Yeah, this is crazy, man. I did my first presentation in high school. And so when kids were doing their little science projects on sunscreen or, what colors do dogs see or how to make a battery out of a potato, I did mine on alcohol. And the teacher was like, that's really odd. I'm like, well, I wanted to know about this. And so I did my first presentation in high school. And then, gosh, probably way before you were born, 1990, turned it into a business. And yeah, have been doing it ever since. Just did it a couple weeks ago. So yeah,
I love that. Why speak on that? Is it something personal? Tell me, or I think you alluded to
yeah,
it a little bit, but can you expand on that if you can, if you want?
yeah. No, 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 definitely. Yeah, definitely personal. But what has happened in my life that I love is watching these light bulbs go on inside a kid's head to go, oh, maybe that's why I shouldn't use a vape. Ah, that's maybe why I shouldn't drink. And I'll tell you, one of the big success stories for me is I was presenting on alcohol. And it's not a testimonial and it's not fear-based. It's all based in humor with a whole bunch of information. And so I started to see this one young lady a couple rows back, just you could tell she was like holding back her tears. She was a high school kid. And then when the presentation was over, she came up to me and she looked at me and she goes, "Thank you." And I said, "For what?" And she goes, "My dad makes fun of me when he's drunk and he says some really mean things. And listening to you talk, it doesn't sound like it's my dad. It sounds like it's the alcohol." And I'm like, "Yes, it totally is." So I talked to her how it lowers the inhibitions in the front part of the brain. That's why people will say stuff and do stuff when they're drunk that they normally wouldn't say. And she goes, "I don't look at my dad anymore as this mean guy. I feel sorry for him now because of what he's going through." She says, "It still hurts. It still feels bad. It still is awful, but it gives me an understanding of why my dad makes fun of me." So when I was doing a lot of the drug and alcohol stuff, I had that story so many times, and to have a kid's brain go on and go, oh, it's because they're drunk or it's because they're high or my mom doesn't provide lunch because of this and it helps them to understand it. Doesn't make them feel better. It still hurts, but there's some understanding there.
I love that. I love that clarity. Thank you for that
Yeah,
clarification.
yeah, you bet.
No, thanks, man. I was on your website. You also discussed like speaking of the brain, right?
Yeah, yeah.
The right brain approach to motivation and communication. Like, tell us about that. I know you discussed that a lot. Tell us about that. And actually you're the second person that I hear about that. The left side from the right side. So tell us about that.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? It's emotional versus intelligence. So there's one part of your brain that does artwork, it loves all that kind of stuff. And then there's the other part of the brain that saves for retirement and, it has critical thinking, gets you there on time. And so kids speak a different language than adults do. I don't know if you have kids, but I'm sure you've heard adults say, "Man, I just feel like this valley is growing between me and my kid, or you see it in movies all the time, where they just can't communicate with their child anymore. So I really started to look into that, and I see that happen with drugs quite a bit. And I saw this happening with my sister. This was years ago. My sister has done a lot of drugs in her life. And every time I would sit down with my sister, I would tell her stuff like this: Sister, you got to stop doing drugs because you're going to lose your house. Sister, you got to stop doing drugs because you're going to lose your family. Sister, you got to stop doing drugs because bad things are going to happen to you. And after a while, she just said, Man, just be my brother. Stop doing that. And I realized that there's two different languages right there. Mine was an intelligent language, but she didn't speak that. She spoke an emotional language. Kids speak emotion, adults speak intelligence. And these two languages, man, they basically hate each other. And so when they talk to each other, there's this animosity that grows between them. And that's what happens with parents and kids. Parents speak intelligence: clean your room, do your homework, mop the floor, walk the dog, do the dishes, brush your teeth, take a shower, right? But kids don't speak that language. And even though we think kids understand English, yeah, that type of English kids don't understand because their brain isn't ready for that. So I talk a whole bunch of how to talk to your kids in an emotional language, how to talk to your client in an emotional language before you start getting information across to them. And it's been super powerful. And the parents that have implemented this have seen a lot of success with their kids.
Do you see that as a challenge as why there's a lot of friction, even like whether it's on the addiction side or on the corporate side, even like the different generations of Gen Z versus Gen X, as far as communication, as well? Do you see
Oh, gosh, yeah. You look at any argument, think back of an argument you've had with somebody, right? I bet one of you was speaking emotion and one of you was speaking intelligence. I'll give you a real simple example. This just happened the other day. I made dinner, I made spaghetti, and I used the wrong towel, and I got spaghetti sauce on it, right? So my wife came up to me and she's holding this towel and not being mean or anything. She's like, "Oh man, you stained my towel." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm sorry about that." And she goes, I like this towel, man. It had like this cool saying on it, stuff. I was trying to preserve it, didn't really want to use it for, spaghetti sauce and stuff like that. So then I started telling her, "Hey, don't worry about it. I know where we can get another towel. We can jump in the car and go get another towel, and let's do." And I wasn't meeting her because she's coming to me with this emotion, right, about messing up this towel, and I'm coming to her with the answers or the problems or the intelligence part. And the more I tried to solve her problem, the more I she got angry with me and I got angry with her. She's like, "Can you just listen to, what I'm trying to tell you about the town?" I'm like, "Well, let me tell you how to solve the problem." So the more we talked to each other, I realized the friction. I'm like, "Hold on." I said, I messed up. You were coming to me with emotion. I was coming to you intelligence. Let me back this up." And so you see this all the time in the news, and the news loves doing this, where you'll get this one person that's intelligence. Statistics say, science shows, man, this is what's happening. Then you get the other person. It's like, where's your heart at? I have this freedom. I should be able to do these things. And the more they talk to each other, the more angry they get. And I saw this with real estate agents. And when we did this whole thing, clients would come in speaking an emotional language, and the real estate agent immediately hits them with intelligence. I said, just listen to their story for a minute. And that's where the successes come in.
Yeah, and I tell my guys the same thing. Listen and understand like what their their emotions, what their or what they want, because people buy with emotions, right? And I
Right.
tell them that don't throw out the stats or price and all that. Just listen to their pain points, and eventually they'll want to do business with you, right?
Yeah, 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 without a doubt. And so that's one of the things that I have seen happen.
I love that, man. Thank you. I read on your website, right? You said you
Uh-huh.
weathered and rebounded from two business setbacks. Tell us about that. It's always
Oh,
always good to
yeah.
hear.
Well, I always wanted to do speaking, and so I, did this thing where I'm like, all right, that's what I do. And so in 1990, I started my business, and it went super well for probably about 5 years. And then just out of the blue, it crashed, just ended. And I'm like, what happened there? So I had to go back and get a regular job and, do the 9 to 5 thing, and it just didn't fit me. And then about 4 years later, I started the business again and did really well. And this time it went about 6 years and then it crashed. I mean, just like overnight, it just stopped. And I'm like, what? Well, what's going on? And I realized when you're an entrepreneur, you feel like you need to do everything. You need to be the marketing person. You need to be the contract person. You need to be the appointment person. You need to be all these things. And I realized what was happening is my business was growing, but I wasn't growing with it. I'm terrible at contracts. I am terrible at getting back to people on time with emails. So what was happening as my business was growing, people were reaching out to me to speak, and it would take me too long to get back to them. And so I finally had to get to the place where I had to bite the bullet and, realized I can't do everything. And that was a little bit shocking to me. And so I had to hire somebody that took all the points that I was weak and they were strong in. And so I hired a person who's been with me now for 12 years, and they love emails. They love when email comes in and they love turning it right around. They love dotting the I's and crossing the T's and all that kind of stuff. And so, my advice to entrepreneurs is you're going to start out doing everything because that's just the way it is as an entrepreneur. And then you finally have to get to the place and just sit down and go, these are my weaknesses. Here's where I'm terrible at. And if I don't find somebody that fits that, my business can't grow. And so that's why they crashed several times. And then the third time, I took all those mistakes. I hired this individual, and it's been going strong ever since.
I love that. I love that. I kind of your story reminds me of me in the same way where, except not to that to the degree to an extent, right? So where I started doing everything on my own, and then
Right.
eventually came to a point where I don't want to do Canva, I don't want to do flyers, so I
Hmm.
outsourced that first person, and then it came to another point where was spending too much time entering notes or using CRM. I hired a second person for that, and then I outsourced. I had to redo my site recently. I hired
Right.
someone for that. So I'd rather spend my time in like working, on the business, not in the business. So it kind of reminded me
Right.
of your story.
Yeah, yeah, you got to do the stuff that makes you money. You know what I
Right.
mean? And all that
Exactly.
other stuff, same thing with me, man. Just making a website, just trying to figure out how to do it was impossible when I could pay, somebody a couple $1,000 and have a website, by the end of the month. And I'm like,
Exactly.
time
Exactly.
saved, money saved. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly, man. Yeah, same thing. What did you learn from that experience, from those experiences? I think you shared it a little bit, but what did you learn from those experiences?
Yeah, I really learned that I can't do everything. I think I can. I wish I could, but I just can't. And I that's one of the big things that I learned. There was a great book called the E Myth Revisited. And yeah, it talks about that. And it just, a person opens up a restaurant, they think they can be the person that orders and the person that cooks and the person that meets, but you can't. And the more you can hire out, the better off you're going to be.
100%. For the youth and for I think the adult population for corporations, you speak on leadership. Do you speak on anything specific or just general or the general principles? Tell what do you when you speak
Yeah,
of leadership, what do you speak about?
Yeah, when I'm talking about leadership, I'm talking about meeting your employees on that emotional level first. Because they're coming in, they're looking for work, and or you have people that are working for you, and there's that emotional part first. And if you can meet that emotional part, then you can start getting the information part across that you need to do. And sometimes bosses just do information. That's all they do. I'm not saying hug your employees and stuff like that, but just, meeting them on an emotional level first and then getting that intellectual stuff in. And, that has been one of the things that has happened because I think we're losing that in society. I think we're losing the connection with other people, especially with AI now. Man, I keep hearing these stories where people are, connecting with Chat GPT so much that they feel like it's their best friend, like it's there for them, when it's just a program. And we're losing that human touch. And that's one of the things that we need as human beings is to have that ride or die person that comes alongside us and puts their arm around us when we're hurting, or we put their arm around them. And so, talking about the leadership stuff with employees, how can you do that with your employees? How can you come alongside them so they're working hard for you, but you're also giving them what they need to do that, feeling connected?
Makes sense. Goes back to that conversation from earlier, right? The
Right.
emotional versus the intelligent aspect of the brain. Goes back to that,
Yeah.
right? I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Um, what anything specific you're working on now that you would want to promote? Can you just let us know about that?
Yeah, yeah. I'm really working on it's called the loyalty loop, and it is the psychology of addiction to hold on to your clients, you know. And so what we do is we have a whole workshop based on that for people. So I talk about addiction, right? And it's so funny because people think, "Oh man, are we doing an intervention here or what's taking place?" But I just talk about how the brain functions for a person that has an addiction, right? A person that has an addiction, uh, their brain becomes unbelievably lazy. And we all have that. When I'm talking to groups, this is one of the things I talk about that I love it because I see my audience kind of like do this thing where they look up to the left for a second, they're like, oh my gosh, he's right. And I'll give you this, right? You only have 12 meals that you eat over and over and over again, right? And once your brain figures out something, it sticks to that and it doesn't look for anything new. I bet you put your shoes on the same way every single day, right? I bet you make your cup of coffee the same way every single day. I bet you brush your teeth the same way every single day, and your brain doesn't have to think about it. So that's one of the things that you have to understand about addiction is that the brain gets lazy and it just wants to do the same thing over and over again, and it loves that. So if you can feed into that in your client, that's one of the big things that will connect them with you. Here's the other big one, and this is huge. When you feel good about something, your brain says, we're going in the right direction. This is the way that we need to go. This is why addiction is so hard to break because anytime somebody does a drug, it gives them that good feeling. And what happens is the brain says, this is the right direction. This is the way I need to be going. Like I bet when you do these podcasts, right, you feel really good after you talk to somebody and you just have that great feeling. And your brain says, this is the right way, man. We're doing the right thing. Let's keep going. Let's do more of this, right? So
100%.
how, yeah, yeah, right?
Yeah,
I mean, I love this. I love these interviews. I love, hearing your story of how you got started and what was the thing that got you going. But if we can feed into our client's brain, like you're doing the right thing, make them feel good, their brain will be attached to that. So we talk all about addiction in the beginning and how to apply those things that the brain's doing. And then the next part is how to speak your client's language. And then the last part is how to set up your business in a way that your clients want to keep coming back. And so that's the thing that we're going to really start hitting really hard in September because businesses are losing clients. They don't have the straight connection that they used to have. And there's a way to get back to that.
I love
Yeah.
that. I love that. That's so important. So important, man.
Yeah.
What final thoughts do you have for either the entrepreneurs and the youth today?
Yeah.
Mm.
When it comes to entrepreneurs, is you really need to sit down and figure out who your client is, right? And you need to figure out what do they like? What do they eat for breakfast? And just make up a story inside your head, and then it's easier to appeal to them. For youth, one of the things for youth is that they uh they're young, they don't know, and they're willing to take chances. And that's one of the things that I really encourage kids to do is when it comes to schooling, when it comes to sports, when it comes to these things, take some chances. If you don't think you're good at soccer, but you would love to play soccer, get out there, take a chance. If you think you would love to play the guitar and you're afraid to do that, you have to learn to overcome that fear. And one of the things that I really stress with kids, because I want them to get this in their head early, is yeah, there's really not such a thing as security, and change is going to be constant. And I feel so bad for people that are afraid of change and they try to hold on to everything when life is trying to tell them we need to move, we need to get going, but they're so stifled in this fear of change that they get stuck. So for kids, change is coming, take a chance. For adults who are running businesses, know your client.
I love that. Where could people find more information about you and how to hire you for your services?
Right. Super easy. Just raylozano.com. We're going to start putting a whole bunch of the other stuff that we're doing on the website. We're, working with people because there's a lot of people that come to me and say, man, I want to start talking to kids. but it's way different talking to youth than it is talking to adults. So we're going to start some classes on that here pretty soon. So everything that centers around speaking and addiction, that's what I love to do.
Love it. Thank you so much, Ray. I enjoyed our conversation. It was a
Me
fantastic
too.
30 minutes.
Yeah, oh, great, man. Thank you so much. I had so many questions for you about stuff, but yeah, man, great talking to you.
Love it. Thank you. Ray Lozano, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.
Hey, Dr. B, hope you enjoyed this limited edition Deals and Dreams pilot. I hope you really enjoyed it. Hope you got some insight. And remember, as Mike Lee would say, you are one big deal away from making it happen. All right, take care.